Hello, and thank you all for tuning in. We are here at Jenkins Hall at Laurel Ridge Community College. This is going to be the first of 4 debates moderated by Page Valley News' Randy Arrington. I'm Ryan Cubbage. I was chosen to host these debates because we were looking for a third-party independent host that could speak and host the event freely. So we are really glad that you all have decided to join us tonight. It's super important to be informed about the issues that are going on in our community and that the policies, viewpoints, and beliefs that our candidates who are running to represent this county stand behind. Personally, I'm super grateful to Laurel Ridge Community College for allowing us the opportunity to record here. I'm a former alumni, actually, Laurel Ridge. From there, I transferred to JMU. Now, ultimately, am pursuing my master's degree. So a big thank you and shout out to Laurel Ridge, not only for what they've done for me personally, but for allowing us to record here at this venue. So like I said earlier, I think voting is one of the most important rights and duties that we have as citizens. And it's important to be informed and up to date on all the issues. And these debates are an honest attempt to achieve just that. So we are excited tonight, and the debate for this evening is the Commissioner of Revenue race. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to both the moderator, Mr. Randy Arrington, and the host. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the first of 4 planned debates. As Ryan said, it'll be among candidates in contested races here in Page County, hosted by Page Valley News. Now, over the next 4 weeks, we hope to enlighten the voters of Page County by going a little more in depth with each candidate, as well as providing a forum to place candidates side by side to discuss the issues important to that office. We'd like to salute the Know Your Local Candidates Page County group for their forum back on September the 7th over at Trackside Theater. That was well attended, and I believe at last count they were approaching 5,000 views on the Facebook video that is now also available on YouTube as well by that group, and that is Know Your Local Candidates Page County. We want to continue on and tell you that we believe these debates are important to the electoral process, to serve, to also fulfill our mission to inform the voters. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of the candidates in contested races in Page County who participated in our recent Q&As on pagevalleynews.com. That allowed the voters to see their motivations, their qualifications, their priorities, vision, and experience. And we had 100% participation by the candidates in that process to inform the voters. We had hoped that the same would hold true for our debates. However, tonight we have only one guest who is running for the Commissioner of the Revenue's office. So rather than a debate, we will engage in an in-depth discussion with Thomas Bauserman and address some still unanswered questions. And Tom, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we're going to start off, and I'm going to allow Tom an opportunity to take a couple of minutes to give sort of an opening statement to talk about who he is and his candidacy. We may repeat some of that in the questions I have prepared, and then we'll have some closing remarks at the end. But Tom, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to go ahead and talk about Tom Bauserman for Commissioner of Revenue. I like that shirt there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. A little shout out to Jacqueline and Brett Routerbush. They made the shirts for us. So a little shout out for them. My name is Tom Bauserman, and I'm running to be your Page County Commissioner of Revenue. A little bit about myself. I grew up here in Page County on my family's farm. My parents are Mark and Nancy Bauserman. I have 4 older brothers, an older sister, and a younger sister, and we all grew up here. And I'm the only Panther in the family. All of my siblings went to Luray High School, so that's a little bit of a rivalry there. I've wanted to run for the Commissioner of Revenue's office since I was 17 years old when I first met Charlie Campbell. He explained to me the duties of the job, the duties of public service, what needed to be done on my part through getting an education, getting experience, and learning the job. So I have been in the United States Army for the last 10 years. I have been in the reserve component in the Virginia Army National Guard. I have served as a platoon leader and a company executive officer. And I several years ago got a job with the Albemarle County Real Estate Office, and I currently work for the Rockingham County Commissioner of Revenue's Office. And all of those things that I have learned over the years, my leadership and my experience, I want to bring those things to Page County to try and help our people. So without further ado, I think we'll probably jump right into some questions.
That's what we're going to do right now. Now, we'll start, as they say, at the beginning, and you hit on several issues and information that we're going to probably do a little bit of repeating here in the early going. But let's start off talking about your family's ancestry and the roots in Page County. I think maybe go all the way back to the boat, I'm not sure, but maybe certainly before there was a Page County, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely, yeah. Bauserman, of course, is a German name. My ancestors came from the Alsace-Lorraine region in Germany, and they came over to Pennsylvania, and they came down through Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and came into Shenandoah County, was where my third great grandfather lived in Woodstock. And they came over the mountain, and the Bausermans were kind of poor farmers. You know, they were just poor country boys, but I think they were pretty good-looking guys because they married well, and they married into the Ruffner family, and that's where the land came from.
Well, here we go, and since we're on the topic of family roots in the county, I think this is a good time to address a discussion you and I had several months ago.
Right.
Right out of the gate, right off the bat, let's put our cards out on the table and let everybody know the real story behind these rumors and things. You and I had a discussion. You very thoroughly explained it to me. But are you a resident of Page County?
Yeah. So it's interesting to me that anyone would say that I'm not from here or that I don't live here. I can assure you that the county still sends me a tax bill for all three of my vehicles, and they send me a real estate tax bill for my house. So I get those.
Now, you were in Harrisonburg for a while, right?
Right, yeah. So when I was on active duty orders in the Army, I purchased a house in Harrisonburg. I lived all over the country. My wife and I, I've lived in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I've lived at Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Lee, Virginia. I've lived at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I've lived all over the place, but I've moved back home to Page County. And my wife and I have our family here, and we live here every night. And I think one neat thing that our campaign was kind of kicking around, our campaign team was saying maybe we should do a Facebook Live every evening and just say, hey, I'm brushing my teeth and I'm going to bed, and oh, by the way, I'm here in Stanley, Virginia.
So it wasn't somebody was over here and somebody was over there. You stayed with your family the whole time?
That's correct.
Very good. Correct. All right. Well, I'm glad we got that cleared up, or at least got you on the record. Regardless of anyone who, how anyone casts their vote on November 7th, I think everyone can collectively agree in a sentiment of thanking you for your service to the country.
I appreciate that.
And I think that's not political. That's not favoritism. That's just a fact. So we do that now. As from PVN, we thank you for your service, and I know a lot of the folks out there watching this feel the same way. So let's dive into that just a little bit. I know you're in the National Guard, and you talked about what you had done a little bit in your opening statement, but let's dig into that a little bit more. Where have you been? What were your duties? Have you ever been overseas? I mean, what's been the extent of your training, experience, and duty?
Right. So I enlisted in the United States Army and the Virginia Army National Guard as a military police officer, if you can believe it.
Okay, all right.
And at the time when I joined the ROTC program at the University of Virginia's College at Wise, you could not get an ROTC contract without being prior service. So I took the spring semester off. I did OSIT, which is one station unit training. I did my basic and my AIT school back to back. It was 20 weeks, and I'm not sure why I thought that was going to go by fast because felt like a lifetime in and of itself. But I learned a lot of the discipline and the leadership and the determination that I have today for this office. It certainly came from that initial military training. Then once I completed the ROTC program, I commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army, and I became a platoon leader with the 1st 111th Field Artillery down in Norfolk, Virginia, and I was in charge of a platoon of about 75 soldiers. We did all of their ins and outs, everything that they required. We took care of that as a leadership team, and I was promoted to a company executive officer, also in Fox Company with the 1st 111, and I served 2 years in that role. And the company we had a lot of different responsibilities. We were called in on hurricane relief. We were called in on snow removal. We were called in for the race riots that took place in May of 2020. My unit was in Manassas, Norfolk, Hampton, Richmond. We had soldiers all over the place, and that was a tough time for the country, but we did the best job that we could for the state. Several ADOS orders and AGR, which is Active Guard Reserve orders. We did several SAD missions, which is State Active Duty, which ironically I call it SAD because it's usually a tough assignment when you get it.
Right.
And so I have transitioned over to the 1032nd Transportation Battalion in support operations on battalion staff, and that's my current assignment. I should be making captain here very soon. I was on the list there in June, so we'll see what happens with that. And I fully intend to make the Army a career. I've done 10 years. I joined in October 13, so I'm halfway
now this
there.
is in the reserves, right?
You
make the reserve as a reservist,
right,
not
as a
as
reserve, yeah. So, and a little bit different, as far as anybody that's in the military, that a reserve component, it's the same 20 years for retirement. You just don't collect your retirement until age 60, and the health benefits are a little bit different. But that, has
some folks might be concerned if you're running for this office, but then we're going to be a full-time soldier.
Right.
Now you did that. You enlisted after you graduated from UVA-Wise?
During the beginning.
Okay.
The beginning.
Okay.
That's where I got the RTC contract.
Well, you're in your early 20s and you're in college and you're getting a degree and you're planning a career. Why add the burden of military service on top?
Well, it's my grandfather was in World War II. My dad served in the military. Both my brothers, my older brother William was in the Army. My older brother Martin was in the Marines, and my oldest brother Eric was in the Air Force. So we have a sense of duty in our family, and it's something that I've always wanted to do it. It's almost like it's been kind of in my heart, beneath my soul, that serving in the military. And a lot of people ask, why would you want to do that, or doesn't it take a lot out of away from your family? And it does, but it's given me, the Army has given me way more than I can ever give it. As far as my mindset, how I prepare, how I go about things, my confidence in leadership, my ability to just feel like, if we prepare and we plan, then it'll turn out all right, and I was trained by the Army that if you make a decision, even if that turns out not to be the best decision, that will always be better than not being able to make a decision at all in the moment. Being indecisive in the moment will always be worse.
I would agree with that. Well, now beyond the fact that you have deep family roots here and that you've served our country honorably, people need to know if you can actually do the job.
Right.
So tell me about the experience you have that makes you qualified to be Page County's next Commissioner of Revenue.
Absolutely. So as I've been knocking on doors since January in our county, the first question I get 95% of the time is, who is the Commissioner of Revenue? What is it? What does the Commissioner of Revenue do? And so the Commissioner of Revenue is the Chief Assessing Officer for real estate and personal property. The Commissioner of Revenue's office is a critical office in the county. It controls your business licenses, your transient occupancy tax. It controls your tax relief for the elderly and disabled program. It controls the land use program, which are all major functions in the county. My experience, what makes me qualified, is I have worked for the Commissioner of Revenue's office over in Rockingham County, and I have been groomed and kind of showed how to run the office by Dan Cullers and Matt Armstrong, who are the county Commissioner of Revenue and the real estate assessor. So every day I'm bouncing questions off them. I'm bouncing questions off of Lois, who's the chief deputy. Hey, this is how we handle this. This is how we handle this situation. And they've been nothing but supportive of my campaign and helping me develop into the leader that I need to be to take the reins as our Commissioner of Revenue. And a unique experience that I have is that I'm a real estate assessor. So when it comes time to understand property values and how they're determined, I have spent several years learning that. I've done in Albemarle County, we did an annual reassessment. We reassessed every property every year. And believe me, that was an insane amount of work, but you learn that way. You know, the more you do it, the better you'll become. And I think that I want to bring that leadership and experience to our county, and I think that I'm well qualified and well prepared. I am not a subject matter expert on everything. I'm not going to stand here and say that, because I don't think anyone is. But I do believe that I have planned and prepared, and I'm ready for this position.
Well, that leads very well right into my next question.
All right.
You segued very well there, because I was going to say, you know, you probably take 10 people off the street. I would bet pretty good money that 5 of them couldn't tell you what the Commissioner of Revenue does.
Absolutely.
Maybe 3 of them could tell you maybe what the Commissioner of Revenue does.
Right.
And so let's see. You know, you demonstrated that you knew some of it, but there's a lot of different things and a lot of different training involved with all the different facets of that office. What training do you have? What do you think you need? And how would you deal with training among staff?
Right. So the trainings that I have mass appraisal, fundamentals of appraisal, whatever the other fundamentals of mass appraisal through the IAAO, which is the International Association of Assessing Officers. And also, you know, I think the best way is to explain, you know, if you can do the job, if you know what you're talking about. Let's go through the programs and talk about them, right, if we've got time. Let's talk about the tax relief for the elderly and disabled, right? In our county, the current tax relief for the elderly and disabled is $21,500 per household. Okay, that's ridiculous. That's less than $1,800 a month for one person or a household to survive. One of the functions of the Commissioner of Revenue's office is to report to the Board of Supervisors whether this program is helping people, whether it's not, how many people are enrolled in it, what the cost is. And I think that if I'm elected your Commissioner of Revenue, one of the functions that I will take is we have to promote to the Board of Supervisors that $21,500 per household has to be increased.
Well, let's take that issue right there.
Right.
Let me pause you right there. And so obviously recently that was an issue that came up at the Board of Supervisors meeting.
It did.
Current Commissioner of Revenue Becky Smith brought the issue before the board, and of course they asked, you know, why has it been 13 years since this has been updated? In 2006, according to Ms. Smith's report, was the last time it was updated, and that has kept some residents from receiving those tax benefits, if I'm not mistaken. So procedurally, there was a breakdown. What would you do to ensure that something like that doesn't happen again procedurally?
Well, procedurally, you have to put an index in, right? And indexes can either be looked at as a cost of living index. It can be looked at as an inflation index. In the last 4 years in our nation, we've had almost 14% inflation nationally, right? So you would design that index so that if the inflation went up 3%, then 3% of that program, $21,500, should go up. 14% would take it to roughly almost $25,000. Now, for some people who might not qualify for that program, that's a huge, major difference maker, because let's really think about who is in this program. tax relief for the elderly and disabled are folks who are on a fixed income. All right, these are folks who cannot provide for themselves. If that be physically or mentally disabled, that's why that money is there. And I think that as a taxpayer, I'm okay with money going to help tax relief for the elderly and disabled, because chances are, if you're 65 years old, which is the qualification to be for tax relief for the elderly, you've been paying taxes for 50 years. Okay, I think that you probably deserve a tax break. And I'm fine with my tax dollars going to that. But my plan, my campaign's plan, to make sure that this doesn't happen again, where I believe it's 17 years from 2006 to now.
Well, I heard what I'm saying, 13 years,
13
but
years.
10 plus 4 plus 3 is 17,
so,
I believe.
So, and you can't tell me in 17 years, and the current commissioner has been the commissioner in power for the last 8 years, and we've never brought this up to look at.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think there was a vote, if my memory serves me right. That was the August 28th meeting, I believe, and I don't think there was a vote because the supervisors had several questions. How much of an impact is this going to be to our revenue stream, et cetera, et cetera? And I don't believe that those answers were available from the commissioners, so they have kind of pushed it off or delayed making that change, I believe.
Well, you got to drop back and punt, because you have to understand the fundamentals. How many people are enrolled in the program? How many people would qualify for the program if you raise the rate? And I have from the other counties close by, Rockingham County is $45,000 per household. Shenandoah County is $40,000. Warren County is $60,000. Madison County is $30,000, and Rappahannock is $40,000. I reached out to Greene County. Now, not knocking anybody from Greene County, but I'm not sure what they're doing over there, because they don't respond to an email, a phone call, a voicemail, anything. So I couldn't get the numbers for Greene County because it wasn't on their website, and I couldn't get anyone to answer. But I guarantee you that it's more than 21,500.
Well, and she provided, Ms. Smith provided a couple numbers as well. Bath County, 50,000. Washington County down in the southwest corner, she thought was comparable, was 31. I think you said Shenandoah was 33. Was I right about that?
Shenandoah should be 40.
40. Well, the point is, Page is 21.
Right.
So that's not even in the ballpark, really. So I'm glad that I think a lot of people will be glad that that's something that, well, let's be honest, both candidates are looking at, but maybe one a little tardy on the draw there. Early on in your campaign, well, let's see. Let me hold on to that one.
Okay.
One of the key things that you have talked about, and this is probably something that's on your list. You've talked about it, so I know I wanted to bring it up tonight, and that's real estate assessments. You want to do those in-house rather than contract them out. And I'm going to have a follow-up, but let's just start out with, why do you want to do that?
Okay. So the reason we need to do our own reassessment is how it's currently done. The county pays almost, or the taxpayers pays almost $600,000 to have Wingate Appraisal come in and do our assessment. Wingate Appraisal is a third-party group out of Roanoke, Virginia. And they come into Page County and they tell us what our values should be. Your house, my house, everyone's house, right? The problem with that is, let's do a basic example as to chasing the sale, okay? So let's say that your house is a 2,500 square foot brick ranch, 4 bedrooms, 2 full baths, and a half bath, right? That house in this current market should be assessed at $325,000 roughly, depending on depreciation, how it's set up and everything. So let's say that we have the house right across the street from yours. Same thing. It's a 1-story brick ranch, 2,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 2 full baths, and a half bath. In an ideal world, they should be assessed the same, and you should pay the same amount of tax on those 2 properties. Now, let's say we have someone from Northern Virginia that liquidates their house in Loudoun County for $1.7 million, right? And they come down here and they say, well, I just love Page County. I love the people. I love the mountains. It's the best place. I'm going to buy a house down there. And they see the house across from your house goes up for sale. And it's, like I said, it should be worth $300,000, $325,000. 2 people get into a bidding war, and they run the price of that house up. from 325 to 350 to 375 to 400 to 425 to 450 to 475, and it sells 475.
Ooh, I wish I owned that house.
That happens. That happens in this county. It happens. So now what's going to happen when you have Wingate Appraisal come in to do your reassessment? They're going to look at that sale, and they're going to do everything they can to raise the value to meet that sale. And so your house, it really should be worth $325, is now worth $475 because the house across from you sold. Now, if you do your own reassessment, you can say this is a other than arm's length transaction, and I'm throwing that out because it's a bidding war. It's not right. And what's going to happen if we don't do that? People who grew up here are not going to be able to afford to live here. And there's so many other intangibles as why we need to do our own reassessment. But that's one quick draw reason as to why. So many parcels are, when you do a blanket reassessment, they don't pick things up. They don't look at things. Right. I've had a lady, when I worked in Albemarle County, she called me and she said, I need you to come out and do a review of my property, right? She had a 2,200 square foot finished basement. 2,200 square foot finished basement. She had a crawl space, and the house was built in 2008. So she's been paying on a 2,200 square foot finished basement for something that never existed. And if you do your own reassessment, you do correct work, and that saves a lot of things. Now, I'm sure the follow-up question is, how much is it going to cost, right? And the current commissioner stated on the Page Valley News Q&A that based off of a lot of different factors, it's cheaper to subcontract that out.
And we're going to continue on, folks. We had just a brief break there for my coughing fit there for a second. I had to get a sip of water, but we're going to go right back into what we were talking about, which was real estate assessments and doing those in-house. And you talked about, and you've mentioned this several times during your campaign, that you feel like this is going to save the county money by doing it in-house. However, your opponent, the current Commissioner of Revenue, has said on the record several times that she does not think that it will save the county money, that it would be more expensive to go that route. So,
right.
Who's right here?
Well, when we put out our initial interview with the Page Valley News, we said it was going to be a wash, right? So I did not. It will not save money, right? But so the current commissioner stated that based off of different factors, that this is a cheap way to do it. Well, that's just what it is. It's cheap, right? And a blanket reassessment is not done correctly. So I think we need to hire 3 assessors, 3 good paying jobs in our community, and I will also help to do the reassessment. I would keep it on a 5-year reassessment based off of talking with taxpayers in the community. They do like having that 5 years between reassessments. There's pros and cons to that. If you do a 5-year reassessment, the pro is that your payment doesn't change for 5 years on your real estate. Some people like that. The con is that when you flip from the last year of that reassessment to the next, sometimes it can change as much as 30%, 40% based off of 6 or 8% increase in real estate per year. So
somewhere back about 09, 11, might have been 2011, 09, there was about a 33% jump in 1 year in taxes because the supervisors had done just that. They had put it off. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the law requires you reassess every 5 years. You can do it as often as every year, but you can also ask for an extension and push it out to
6 years.
6, I thought.
I believe 6 is the max because really 5 years is, think about it, 5 years ago, what real estate prices were as of today.
Yeah.
Right? That's a considerable change.
No
so that's
question.
why, I think annually is too much. It requires a massive amount of staff to be able to do that.
Yeah, and you're right. You have to keep up with the market so that you're getting the fair revenue for the county out of but you also have to keep up with it, because I know when I bought my house, and I don't care who knows what I spent on my house. My house was assessed at somewhere around $229, and I bought it for $160.
Right.
Now it wasn't that depreciated in terms of holes in the roof or it wasn't torn up. In other words, it was in good shape.
Right.
It was just a matter that it had been overassessed.
Yeah. Well, that's a problem when you have a third party group. Is they chase the sale. They want the highest revenue. That's what they do. However, if you do it yourself, you have to understand that fair market value, uniformity. That's what we strive to achieve. Right.
Right.
The idea that the county is trying to raise the taxes up high and collect high taxes on real estate. It's just not true. I don't think that the current commissioner wants to do that either.
If they did, they probably would reassess more often.
Right. Yeah. You would think. And I think that we've tried to do fair and equitable. Right. You try and do uniformity, and everything is based off of what the property will bring. Right.
But let me
fair market value.
But let me make sure I understand this. So you're saying by doing it in-house, one of the reasons that you think it would be cheaper, even though you would be adding 3 positions with benefits, insurance, all the things that come with that,
right,
and you would have it every year, you'd have that expense every year, you believe that because that would be a more accurate assessment that it would generate then in terms more revenue
it
to help pay for those positions?
I'm not going to say that it would be cheaper. It will not be cheaper to hire three people, but you are hiring 3 good paying jobs for people.
But
in
you
our
think
community.
It would be fair?
It would be fair. You're doing a more accurate job. The real estate assessment will be correct. You won't have things like, for instance, someone that gets a permit for a pool. It never actually gets built because they realize, hey, I don't have $40,000 to put a pool in, but the county adds that pool onto their property. They don't know it, so they're paying tax on something that they pull a permit for but never actually built. But because you have a third-party group that only comes around every 5 years, you have no idea.
That's a good point.
So things like that we want to clean up, but I will clarify that you get what you pay for, right? So if you want to do it the cheapest way, ultimately, it is my office's job to prepare and plan and put and pitch to the Board of Supervisors, this is what I believe we should do. It is up to the Board of Supervisors to approve whether we do our own reassessment or whether we hire it out. So at the end of the day, I would not be able to actually change how we do reassessment, but I can use my position and platform to say this is what my office believes is the best thing for the taxpayers, and pitch that to the Board of Supervisors, which has not been done by the current commissioner.
Well, let's stay on taxes, and this has been part of the debate. Let's say the social media debate that's been going on in your race here for Commissioner of Revenue. That early on you came out and talked about lowering taxes, and your opponent was quick to say that, Commissioner of Revenue can't control tax rates. That's the Board of Supervisors.
Right.
But you elaborated on that point at the September 7th forum over at Trackside Theater about different ways that you might do this. So what did you mean when you say you wanted to lower taxes, and how could you do that through the Commissioner of Revenue's office?
Right. So I think that our taxes, especially for personal property, are $4.40 for every $100 of assessed value. That's ridiculous. We're the highest of every county around us. And the question that I would pitch is, what are we getting for what we're paying? Right? If you have a $35,000 vehicle, I said this the other night, in our county, a vehicle that's assessed at $35,000, and that's not a Land Rover, that's not a Mercedes-Benz, that's not a BMW, that's a bare-bone Honda CR-V, right? That vehicle, you will pay $2,680 in taxes in our county. That's crazy. We have got to share the tax burden and get that personal property tax rate down. And one of the ways that you do that is sharing the tax burden. So one of my plans is pitching to the Board of Supervisors, hey, why don't we add a percentage of transient occupancy tax, right? Have people that are not from the county paying the taxes to help lower the tax burden. Some counties charge as much as 8%. We charge currently 5%. That other 3% could bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue that could help lower the tax rate. But these ideas aren't being pitched, and I don't know why. I'm not sure why. The reason constitutional officers exist, I am your voice in local government. That's why this position exists. I adhere to the taxpayers. That's who elects me. And so if you're not going to use your platform to lobby on behalf of the taxpayers to lower the tax rate as best you can, then I don't know why you would run for this office in the first place. There's several different things that we can do with commercial properties. As I said the other night, the commercial properties like the Wrangler plant and some of these other plants that are sitting empty are not generating hardly any revenue at all. And if they were full, one, you would have good paying jobs, and two, they would be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars into the coffers.
Yeah, machinery and tools.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we have got to work on. And it's not just the Commissioner of Revenue's office, it's the Board of Supervisors, it's the taxpayers, it's the community. Everyone has to kind of get on board with, we need to fix some of the problems that we have. And I may not be able to set the tax rate, but damn if I can't go and lobby on behalf of the taxpayers and work with the Board of Supervisors to come up with better plans and better ideas, not just this year, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, to say, all right, well, we're at $4.40. How do we maintain the budget, increase revenue from other sources so that we can lower the tax rate? Those are questions that we have to have, and we're not having
them. Excuse me. One of the things that I asked both you and your opponent in preparation for this debate was to come up with 3 questions for your opponent. Obviously, Ms. Smith is not here tonight, and we'll address that in a moment as we get into our final phase and wrap things up here in just a moment. But there were 2 issues that you raised in the questions that you submitted that I think are worth a little brief discussion before we kind of get into our wrap up here. One of the questions that you had for Mrs. Smith, if she had showed here, was why are taxpayers receiving bills from the county treasurer's office for parcels that are assessed by your office and those parcels do not exist? Please explain.
Absolutely. So, knocking on doors, I have received several taxpayers who have contacted legal counsel telling me that they have received bills from the county treasurer's office for parcels that don't exist, the parcel they don't own. And so I was taken back by that, to think that that would even be something that was possible. I guess it's somewhat similar to the Confederate monuments, when there's a parcel there with a Confederate monument on it, but we don't know who owns it, we don't know who it belongs to or what. So I guess there's a parcel that is being sent a bill to several taxpayers, and this is over 6 taxpayers that I've received this information from. So I don't fully understand it, and I doubt that if I call the Commissioner of Revenue's office, they're going to answer my questions. So I thought that in the debate it would be proper to ask the Commissioner more about that, what was going on, and I'm sure that those taxpayers, if you're listening, would like to know the answer to that as well.
Well, I know that I certainly would, just out of pure curiosity, and obviously this sounds like there's a glitch in the system there somewhere. Last one, in terms of an issue type question, and we'll give you an opportunity if there's something we missed that you can bring up. But you talked about TOT, which for those viewing, that's transit occupancy tax, which is paid on all lodging from cabins to motels, hotels, and Airbnb, which is a big thing. The town of Luray has talked about this quite a bit. The county has talked about this in terms of how do we make, with it being such a growing trend, and locally with short-term rentals has been a big issue the town of Luray has talked about. One of the concerns in those offices are how to make them more accountable, to make sure that everyone who's supposed to be paying that is paying that, and they're reporting properly as they should be. And like I said, it's something the county and the town have talked about. How can we clean that up?
Well, we have a lot of issue with Airbnb, and we have it in Rockingham County. And shame on Airbnb, by the way. They will not account for taxes that honest business owners are paying. They are accounting for it in their books, but Airbnb will write the county a check and not be able to tell you where the money came from. So you basically, to break it down, you have if you and I started Airbnbs and we paid the percentage to the county that's owed, and we paid it to Airbnb, and they write a check to the county on our behalf. But when they write that check, they're not telling the county that we're the ones that gave them the money. They're just giving them like, for instance, $80,000 for one quarter, but they couldn't tell you where the money came from to them. And that's dishonest, it's shameful, and several of the commissioners locally have written responses to Airbnb, and I hope that they clean up their act.
I'm sure the auditors don't like that either in terms of tracking.
It's a terrible way to do business. You couldn't make this up. I mean, when you hear it, you're like, are you kidding me? That you're running a business, but you're not reporting on who's giving you money. You're just giving an overall gross income and not telling the county where it came from. But that's beside the point, and I think that's one of the things that as a commissioner of revenue, I will work to try and clean up with the other commissioners in the localities.
Now, your opponent is an incumbent, 2 terms, been in there 8 years. You have a few years' experience yourself. So in some voters' minds, they see a young, eager candidate who's facing that 2-term incumbent, and they think, well, maybe he still has a few years, and maybe he could wait a little bit, and then they think that maybe they'd rather side with experience. Tell me right here and now why the people of Page County should vote for you right now in 2023.
Fair enough. So when I vote for someone, I want to know who you are and what you plan to do. And I think that, we vote for someone to help improve our lives in local government. And if you don't feel like your life has improved over the last 4 years or the last 8 years or the last 35 years, maybe you ought to give somebody else a chance. Try some new leadership. Someone has new ideas that's from here and lives here, that wants to promote our community and wants to go to the Board of Supervisors and ask some tough questions. What are we getting for what we're paying? If we're paying the highest taxes around, where's the pools and community centers for our kids? I'm convinced that one of the reasons we have such a resounding drug issue is that our youth don't have a lot of opportunities. They don't have a lot of, if you're not getting your kids into travel teams or sports or athletics, you better, because I think we need more community outreach. And a shout out to the rec center and a lot of the things that they're doing to try and promote the youth, and the Page Alliance for Community Action. They do a lot of good things as well, and I think we need more of that. We just need more of it, and I think that a vote for Tom Bauserman for Commissioner of Revenue on Tuesday, November 7th is a vote for change, and a vote for change in the right direction.
Very well, and is at this point, I've kind of gone through the questions that I wanted to pose. I've gone through some of the questions that you had for your opponent. Is there any specific issue that we have not talked about that you would like to raise at this time?
There is. The best analysis that I have for what people are thinking and what the taxpayers care about and what the citizens care about is by knocking on doors and getting questions asked to me. One of the questions that was asked to me was the land use program, and I want to touch on that a little bit. I've had people ask me if farmers weren't paying their share, if we should increase the taxes on the land use program. And the answer is 100% no, because as Mrs. Baldwin just sent out in an email, we have had a drought, and our farmers have lost over $5 million worth of assets this summer, right? So for anyone to think that the land use program for our farmers and for our agriculture is not benefiting our community, you're wrong. And I will be a commissioner of revenue who would defend the land use program. I will defend our farmers, and I will promote everyone that I can into the land use program for agricultural use, anyone that qualifies, because I think it's a good program. And to explain a little bit about what it is, there's qualifications that you have to have to be in that program, and it's not a tax break. The land use program is a tax deferment, right? And if for any reason that property is taken out of the land use program, for instance, if it's a home being developed or you sold a property, different zoning or whatever, then you would pay 5 years of rollback taxes on that property at fair market value. And if any property doesn't qualify for the land use program, it is taxed at fair market value. So that's one of the excuse me, that's one of the questions I've received while knocking on doors, that I want to defend our farmers, not only because I am one, and the current commissioner is also a farmer. So I think that we need to protect our farmers, and we need to make sure that the land use program is here to stay and is protected.
Well said, well said. Well, we're going to kind of wrap things up here. Not quite close out just yet, but we're into our final phase, and I just want to make sure that everybody at home realizes that an invitation was sent out to Commissioner of Revenue Becky Smith, and I would like at this time, just so everyone knows, if they haven't read recent editorial on PageValleyNews.com, this was her reply, because this is the only thing she gave us that would represent her here tonight. I truly, truly, from my heart, wish that she was here tonight to talk about her 8 years in office, to defend her performance, good or bad or in between. But this was her response. Mr. Arrington, I will not be participating in any debates against my challenger, recorded or otherwise. I believe that my record over the past 8 years, along with the tremendous outpouring of support I have gotten from the community, speaks volumes. I can assure you that my 35 years of experience and master's certification has prepared me to speak intelligently on issues that are relevant and important to the office. My door is always open to my constituents. I can also be reached via email, Facebook, or phone. I love speaking to my fellow residents, sharing stories, and helping them with any questions they may have. A recorded political debate is not an appropriate forum in which to do so. So if Mrs. Smith is encouraging questions from the constituency, I would encourage each and every one of you who views this video to ask her why she was not here this evening. That is going to about close things out. I'm going to give Mr. Bauserman a final moment, although your last two responses have kind of almost been like closing remarks. I'm going to stick with my format. I'm going to offer you a closing statement, and then I will close out and let Ryan Cubbage come back up and close out this segment, our first of 4 planned debates. So go ahead, your closing statement.
One last thing I want to touch on before we stop is the staff that's currently working in the Commissioner of Revenue's office. This is to you, and I have had several people ask me this question: would I come in and immediately fire the staff? The answer is no. I have served in several different assignments in the United States Army where I was getting a new team every 12 to 18 months. I feel like if you can work with me, I can work with you. Now, I'm not naive. I'm sure that the current commissioner has the support of the staff, perhaps, and I think that I'm not going to take away someone's way that they provide for themselves and their family simply because I won an election. I think there's no honor in that. I feel like if you can work with me, I can work with you. Now, if you feel like you can't work with me or you don't want to, well, there's not much I can do about that. But I will extend an olive branch, and I see no reason to fire someone who's worked very hard and very diligently to receive certifications and do the job of helping the taxpayers. So I wanted to make that a blanket statement because I've had several questions about that. In closing, I want to thank Mr. Arrington and Mr. Cubbage for helping to put this on. I think, like I said the other night, it's so critical to hear from the candidates. It's so critical to get questions. If you're going to run for public office, you have to take questions from your constituency. You have to show up to debates. You have to show up to public forums. And if you don't, I'm not going to vote for you. I think that I appreciate the job that the Trackside Theater did and the Page Valley News has done, and I'm looking forward to seeing the other debates so that I can make an informed decision when I vote for the other candidates. That's pretty much it. I think that I would appreciate your support. I tell each person that I talk with, if I've earned your support here tonight, I would appreciate it if you told 10 of your friends and neighbors about me and we can win this thing. Thank you.
Well, once again, Page Valley News would like to thank Thomas Bauserman for being here this evening and showing up, and we invite all of you to join us again next week. We'll be airing this video on Wednesday, September 20th, and then each following Wednesday on the 27th of September, then October 4th, and October 11th around noon, we'll be airing the subsequent interviews and debates. Our next one that will be the District 2 race on the Page County Board of Supervisors between Alan Louderback, the incumbent, and Paula Kibler, the independent challenger. Then we will go on to the clerk's race and then end up with the race for Page County Sheriff. So we ask each of you to go to our YouTube channel and look for these videos. You can hit that subscribe button if you don't mind, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube and type in Page Valley News, or you can also go to our homepage on pagevalleynews.com and hit the YouTube icon in the upper right of the home page. Once again, we'd like to thank also Laurel Ridge Community College for allowing us this space and time and working with us to schedule for us to be here in this beautiful setting here at Jenkins Hall. So for Page Valley News, I'm Randy Arrington saying thanks for clicking on our video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us again next week as we continue these debates and try to inform the voters of Page County. Thanks everybody for being here tonight, and I'll turn it back over to Ryan Cubbage.
Wow, it's much easier to host the debates than moderate or sit in the hot seat. So I'm glad to have the privilege and the pleasure of hosting this debate. I would like to say thank you to the candidate for answering the questions. I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Arrington, for your moderating of this debate. We hope that you all have taken some great information from this, that you feel more educated and knowledgeable about some of the issues that we're facing here in the county. My encouragement, I am all in favor of informed decision making and informed voting. So hopefully tonight that has been provided to you, a little additional information. And between now and Election Day, it's up to us as community members to make those informed choices and to do our due diligence, to do our research, to ask the questions. So for myself, I'm honored to be here. Again, my name is Ryan Cubbage. I've had the privilege and pleasure of hosting the first out of 4 debates. So I hope that you all will join us next week as we hit our second debate, and we'll be at the same fun place at the same fun time here at Jenkins Hall at Laurel Ridge. I'm Ryan. Thank you all.